Hello, everyone. We are very happy to have you here on our first interview of the day. I am Irina Garcia, Youth Ambassador for UNESCO Center for Peace. Here we have the Executive Director of the Center, Mr. Ed.D, and we are very happy to introduce you to one of our guest speakers on STEM. So, Rafa, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Hireli. My name is Rafael Alfonso Carrera Pallavicini. I'm the chairman of the UNHCR simulation in the International Model United Nations program in the United Center for Peace Summer Camp. We have with us here Dr. Gregory King, who is the executive director of MESA in Washington. And we will now make you some questions to you, Ms. Dr. King. We're very glad that you can be here with us. You just gave us an amazing conference to all the kids of the United Center for Peace program, and we'll start with the first question, which I was asking my delegates from the UNHCR to make some questions so I can deliver them to you. And the first one that we have is that talking about diversity in the educational programs, we
Mhm.
want to know what's the main obstacle for achieving gender equality inside these programs of STEM.
Well, I think opportunity is the first obstacle for achieving gender equality. Um, as I shared in one of my data points, underrepresented women actually have gained more degrees in STEM than underrepresented men. But when you look at them as a group and our individual underrepresented groups, it still pales compared to their count of white college students. And so, one is opportunity. I think second is preparation, academic preparation. Some students don't have access to rigorous academic courses that are essential for having a strong application as well as the foundation to do well in STEM. And I say it's not that they can't, it's just also building a skill set in order to have it. But in some school districts, there are a lack of resources, a lack of qualified teachers to actually provide that particular education for our students, and so that also impedes their growth. And the second thing, I think, confidence, not having a STEM identity. And when it's a lack of gender equality or a lack of diversity, it's often because students cannot see themselves in those roles. So if your dad is an engineer or your mom is an engineer or in STEM, you more than likely are going to get that particular indirect learning from them on what they do, how they do it. But some of our students or some of our women are not exposed to that, and it depends on the communities where they are as well. So so that's one of the reasons why we try to connect more people of color to students of color so they can see themselves as them, and that's important. And now with the online of the internet access, if they have it, you could find several people of color and women who actually are doing some amazing things in STEM, and students just need to constantly feed themselves that image that they can do it. So those are the three things I think will help.
Well, thank you very much. Now we'll yield the word to Kitty Joken to make
Okay.
it.
Okay, thank you so much. I just want to again reiterate, first of all, what Dr. King was saying in terms of opportunities. Sometimes, as a civil rights activist, as an activist, been fighting about, asking people to give equal opportunity, because if you give equal opportunity, then, like you said, the outcome will be different. And just taking this again a little bit across the globe, we know that there are part of the world where culture actually play a very, very important role into preventing women for accessing some of these opportunities. You saw in places like India, I don't know what the numbers are today, but it's totally unacceptable. People still preferring, there are people that actually kill their daughters because they are looking for a boy. Okay, we've seen that it's a tragedy in some part of the world, especially in India, where a lot of cases have been documented. So in Africa, where I grew up, was born in Cameroon, as you know, there was a time where, because of the limited resources in parents, they can only send some of their children to school, and they were choosing to send boys. In old days, it was like boys, are more likely to stay here, but the girl will go somewhere else. So if I have limited resources, so there's also some cultural element that actually are preventing this sustainable development goal in achieving gender equality. But the great thing, as Dr. King is saying, is that right now the internet is an equalizer, right? You see that in this modern age, we can work to make sure that we address some of those issues. When during Dr. King's presentation, you could see, that they are real. His raison d'etre, as they say in French, is to make sure that this equality is a reality. That's what he's been doing, and I recommend it. So, Dr. King, after just saying that, I also want to thank you again for the presentation and tell some of the parents, because again, when we are doing the presentation, most of the target was the delegate, but this message is going to go across the globe to parents, to those wishing. So some of the things that we said in there that were really interesting, I would like some of the viewers to know some of the amazing thing that MESA. What is MESA? Some of them say, what are you talking about? So just in a nutshell, tell people what the mission of MESA, and also some of the things that personally you have done through your life, because I think your life experience is just as interesting, because I think when we see what you've done, and I think that your personal experience it has been instrumental in the success that you've got to date in Washington.
Yep. Yeah. Thank you. So yeah, our mission is to see more underrepresented students and women pursue STEM degrees, careers, and teaching. So we wanted a few organizations that also believe the importance of having teachers of color teach STEM subjects to students, and also women as well, to encourage more students to see themselves in this field. And you're right, part of my personal experience, I didn't have that. I started off as an aircraft electrician. It made a tremendous impact on my family. I was able to provide resources, and I was only in high school. That was my first STEM career. But when I got to college, as I said, with the students, I developed this imposter syndrome. I was one of the few African American students in that class. Even though I felt well prepared, I had the math courses, science courses. I took all I could take. However, when I got there, it was It was a culture shock. I mean, it's almost like I was in a different country. So I think that's why, for what we do academic advising. We make sure the same strategy I was telling the students about, having them document their experiences, putting it in a resume, and then reading their essays to make sure it's a place of strength and overcome, not from despair, because most college people who are reading those applications cannot relate to our students' experiences, and that's part of the problem. So we just make sure our students know how to articulate their experiences, and we do. That's why I encourage the young person to have someone to read it who is honest, to give you feedback, because those things are essential for students to get over or get even considered or for being admitted into a STEM program. But preparation is one of those things that I cannot stress enough. And it starts with a growth mindset, just being willing to learn. And like you said, with the access of internet, there's so many free math and science courses online, if students have access, to just take it, and to continue to build that so that when they get to college, it's just like practice. It's just like being better. And it's not a fixed mindset. People are not honestly born just with STEM or have a STEM mind. I mean, it really is an asset that could be grown, and it could be practiced, and all students could achieve it. So I hope that answered your, oh, by the way, too, Guy, and I carried it with my own children. My youngest daughter, my oldest daughter was one of the few African-American females who graduated from Duke University with a computer science
Wow.
and econ degree. And then my youngest daughter is pursuing, got just accepted into a nursing program. So this is something that I carry, and I want all children to have the kind of support that I give to my own children, because they too are both females, and then it's a lack of diversity in the fields that they're attending. So the point of, they're entering in. So the point is to be supportive. And so I bring this to the students. I treat them like all my children. And this is one of the things that I want every child to have, is the support and the belief that they can. And no one could tell you otherwise.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Dr. King, reading your biography, I've seen that you were a middle school teacher, and you were also a high school teacher. But sadly, as I say it with my own teachers, I'm a high school student, that sadly, teachers not only in Mexico, but in various countries are not recognized for all the work that they do. And because they hold in their hands the education of our future leaders. And we know that if you don't have the correct guidance, we literally get in serious trouble. So on that matter, what do you think would be the best way for teachers to be recognized and for the everyday work to really be worthy on them and on the students?
Well, I think acknowledging, that teachers are essential to the future of our students. And that's honestly where it starts, where students' confidence start, and how they feel that they belong in education. And any adverse or negative experience is going to turn students off. So what we do in our organization, and I didn't mention it, but we honor a teacher of the year every year, and we should do more, because all teachers are given a sacrifice to teach students for low wages, and it's even worse in some of the countries. But like you alluded to, teachers are important. I think elevating the profession to the extent that we encourage that. And I think what you're seeing in the United States, the teachers are having a stronger voice, whereas before they didn't. And that's just promising to see. And then, like I say, my wife and I, we are educators, and we are lifelong educators. And so we carry that. It comes without a lot of fanfare, but just acknowledging teachers. We acknowledge also our directors. We try to make a concerted effort to show appreciation for just what you do on a daily basis. And so that's one of those are the few strategies I think would be essential. And at any time we can elevate a teacher, recognize them. We also had a video where we even capture our teacher of the year on a video, just to memorialize her, so that wherever she goes, she will always be remembered in that video for the work that she did with our students. So those are some of the things we do. And I just encourage more. It could be a simple certificate. It could say a note to say, hey, I appreciate you. It's just simple things that doesn't take a lot of money to recognize teachers and the things that they do for our children. And they are entrusted with the greatest gift that we have given them, which is our children. And so, and we also, as parents, because we're educators, we made baked goods, we made baked cookies, we made small, coffee, we do, it says everything doesn't cost money. So some parents, they can just bake. Teachers appreciate just the acknowledgement. It doesn't take a whole lot. And so just acknowledging them, you definitely will get a lot more from teachers if just by them knowing that you care about them as well. And so, but thank you for that. And I do agree with what you stated.
Thank you. Yeah. So now,
One round,
Rafa,
one more round.
Rafa, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, Dr. King, following the question that I really just did, and hearing your conference, I see that you're a person that is very preoccupied about diversity and how diversity should be working with the educational system and how to empower the youth with diversity. So I would like to know, how do you, as a teacher, how do you approach the how do you approach people who are part of minority groups, and how do you transmit them this message about the opportunities? How do you present the teacher to be the example for these young kids? Doesn't matter which minority they're part of, but how
Mhm.
to transmit this message that they have opportunities?
Yeah, I think the first thing, well, that you have to do is establish a sense of community and trust in the classroom or in any relationship you establish with community or diverse communities. Because even though we're diverse, you can't make assumptions that we're all alike. We come from different backgrounds, so there's diversity within diversity. But the first is to come to a place of asset, like what can you learn from communities? What are you willing to, not what you learn, but come from a place of partnership and collaboration, like Guy alluded to earlier, because even we are diverse, we're impacted by some of the same systemic issues that keeps us from actually obtaining our fullest potential. So the goal is for us to establish those partnerships from a place of respect, a place, like I say, asset, that you are an asset to me, you're an asset to my family, or asset to our community, and your diversity that you bring, I'm willing to learn, having that growth mindset, and don't make assumptions about people. That's the worst thing you could do. Even if it's diverse, we may look like we have the same skin color, we come from the same community, but there is diversity within that. So establishing a community where everyone's voice is heard, everyone in the community, they are respected for who they are as people, individuals. And then I think also just from the human element of just treating people from the human perspective, not and oftentimes, like, we don't, when we bring our programs, we actually come with the understanding of how that program is implemented in that community, and how we could support teachers and just make it more community based, and using even some of the local community or local organization that are there in that community to help move or help to promote STEM. So there are several, well, those are a few ways that I think are important when you're working in diversity. Just don't make assumptions. Don't. And also, like, even as an African American male, I can't speak for all African Americans. I can't speak for all Blacks. What I can do is also share my experience, and then sharing my experience that I think transcend different cultures, and then help each individual to reach whatever goal they have by sharing what I have. And I think having that willing to share of yourself without cost, without is important as well, because sometimes the community students, from what we've learned, our students don't pursue STEM for the financial gain. Some do, but most of them pursue it or how they impact their community. And when I started as an electrician, I didn't. I grew up in poverty. I was in government housing. So when I received the funds, my check, that changed my family. It changed my community. And I mean, my family, my immediate family, because I haven't seen money like that before. And so with that, I think it's every student, every person you interact with has the potential to have that kind of impact on their community. And so you got to treat that individual as if they are the next, president of the United States, but with level of respect. So I think you got to elevate, you got to listen to students, you got to listen to communities and see what they want and what they need, and then try to make your program fit the need as opposed to imposing your will on people. And I think that's oftentimes when people go wrong when diversity work is trying to put a set of construct of predetermined outcomes without first learning and building relationships to learn about the community and whatever assets they have and getting their voice into what you're actually trying to accomplish. And I think that's why I believe, are successful in what we do.
Well, thank you very much. That was a great answer.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. King. And I think also just to add to that, yesterday there was a presentation by Heather Keaton Anderson, and she showed a picture about an iceberg. Okay, you remember that picture, right? Yeah, the iceberg, we only see 1/9 of that outside, but you may think, oh, that's just something. But again, those who use physical threat to judge people are missing the point. There's at least eight, nine that we don't see. So when we're talking about just using physical threat to judge people or to presume people's capacity and things like that, we are actually missing a lot. So that's one thing that I just wanted to add to our, because I know our delegate has will be worth looking at this picture, at this interview. So Dr. King, my last question is about the current sad state of affairs in the United States, where there's no other way to put it. There's been a failure of leadership, and somehow, just like Irely was saying, the teachers now, not only for the longest time they don't feel value and things like that. There seems to be now a prop in the campaign, because some are trying to push teachers to go to school without in the middle of pandemic, without actually setting some set of criteria by which it will be safe to do so. So this is an issue that we are facing in the US and many parts of the world they are also facing. But I wanted you to just reflect on that. And I have some students asking me a question. I'm not an expert. You happen to work in an environment where some you may know some of the best way to approach this issue. So for the parents that worry about sending their children to school, for the teachers, some of them actually thinking about leaving the school system just because, again, they are not valued and there's a pandemic. Instead of setting set of criteria that will make them safe, it seems some of the politicians seem to have a priority somewhere else to use them as a guinea pig. So I just want you to reflect a little bit on that and tell us what you are thinking and what we recommend, and maybe also what Washington State is doing to make sure that if and when the school open, there's an environment where all these students coming will perform, will do well.
Yeah, well, I think our state is erring on the side of caution and safety. I think our teacher union, who represent all of our teachers, are expressing their voice in terms of wanting to make sure that it's safe to return to school. We have the privilege of our president also, who is ensuring that we are safe. And so we definitely believe that in safety, and then making sure following, the protocols and the guidelines that is established with our health officials. And so because a lot of, in the state of Washington, a lot of our we do have many teachers that are more experienced, that are more vulnerable to sickness and disease, and especially pre-existing conditions. And so it could have a devastating effect on the education of our youth. And it is challenging, as I said earlier, for our students to have online learning. And I think that's also something that we should actually do more of to fill that gap, because a lot of now, I mean, I think all of our school districts, most of them are not starting school at the beginning of the school year. Most of them are actually waiting until some are starting 6 to 8 weeks late. Some is just all online in terms of a semester. So those are positive signs based upon the direction and the leadership of this state. And I just continue to encourage that we always look at how it's going to impact the future. Because if you lose a lot of your teaching force through deaths, it's very more detrimental to especially students of color who have lacked quality experienced teachers, and that's one of the detriments. So we want to continue to encourage to follow our guidelines. And I think in our state we're doing a great job of that. And the unions also are really speaking up. And at one point, it seems like that unions were not as they are always vocal. It's just not having an impact. But now that teachers can have an impact on a number of areas, I see more participation and showing up for board meetings, because most of in this the states, it's local control, local school districts. So it seems to be some unity now that everyone in this area is more prone to safety before they let the students back. But at the same time, though, there are challenges for parents in terms of providing a quality education for students while they're at home, and that still is a challenge. So I want to acknowledge that, and I think what we are even trying to do, as I said earlier, is how do we meet that need, and then how do we help teachers meet that need of students. But anyway, it's some very positive. We are an example, I think, in the state of Washington. So, but that's just my personal opinion.
Thank you so much, Dr. King. No, definitely, I think there's no doubt that that's an example. Hopefully, others will follow, because again, the sanctity of life is something that should be paramount. But it's very unfortunate to see some of the people that claim to be life, pro-life, now, think that we should sacrifice human beings for economics. So thank you very much, Dr. King.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yes. And now, Dr. King, for the last question of the interview. We have seen that education has taken a totally different shift in the last few months with quarantine and COVID-19, and that students have been in the need for them to transform their day-to-day lives from a classroom to their computer or their phone even. But on that matter, as we've seen, sadly, even in countries like the United States, we have seen kids that do not have access to those resources, and that they are even in the situation where they need their parents' phone or their parents' laptop, but they also need to work. So on that matter, what do you think would be the best alternative for kids? You may focus it on the United States or even better all over, but for them to achieve having an access to those resources and continue with their education.
Yeah, that's difficult to achieve without either a school or community providing additional resources. And switching to online learning is not always conducive for students who have different learning styles. You have students with disabilities that we didn't even address. You have students with language barriers because some of the communication and instruction is in one language. So a number of students are missing out, even though we shifted to virtual learning. And I'll tell you firsthand, I used to, part of my role as executive director of science, technology, engineering, arts, and math at a school district was to implement one-to-one devices, what they were Chromebooks that we used at the time, to make sure every student had access to the Chromebook. But by giving them a Chromebook, we also had to make sure internet access was available in their homes, because if some students had it, we created another inequity because some student had access. And so I do think there's two things that I think states should invest in. Number one, how do we provide internet access to everyone, making sure they have, especially in the rural area, especially with the parents who cannot afford it. I think you have several of the companies that are making a ton of money providing internet services. I think there should be some way of subsidizing that, or having cities. Some cities have adopted Wi-Fi everywhere. I think the government officials who represent the people have to fight for that. Second of all, I do think there has to be not only computer-based instruction, but somehow some students are tactile kinesthetic. They have to have things in their hands. They have to learn that way, and you can learn through exploration. So I do think in some cases through the library, local libraries, providing resources through that. I know at our library, you can check out materials for students and families. Right now, that's the only resource I know in communities, other than other communities providing books for reading and things like that. But those are some of the things that I would encourage for students. And then for students with disabilities, the continuation of advocating for their rights, because those are the most vulnerable at the time. Those are students who don't speak the language, English or whatever the instruction in their first language. They are the most vulnerable. And so with that said, we have to provide a system of remediation once we get through this process, because you know we didn't know it was going to happen. And oftentimes before you go into virtual learning, you have to first ensure that the teachers are comfortable in teaching online. It's not the same. It's not the same where you just, hey, we're going to go on virtual online and every teacher knows how to do that. So that's not how it is. It's like giving electronic textbook and telling the students to read and they don't know how to read. So with this said, we do have to invest in teacher professional development around what are some different strategies and how to teach using technology, because it's assumed. And so also, like you say, through community-based and also through the library, how do we provide some hands-on learning opportunities through a checkout system? I know this is idealistic, but there are some people that actually are doing some of these things. But the library is a local resource now that parents could go and get some resources. And I would just say, continue to ask the local library right now, our community-based organizations, or even the school. Even the schools, well, I know in the States, but some schools you could go out and check out materials because you pay your taxes. And some parents may not know that they have this right, but they can check out materials. They can demand of the school district to provide that. It's just the collective voice and organizing that to where parents feel empowered too. So I think it's it does address what Guy brought up earlier about safe, but then there's also, we got to empower the parents with resources so that the students could still obtain their education, but also invest in a plan for once we get through this, what is going to be the makeup strategy for missing all of these days of instruction. And that's one of the things that I would be looking to be involved with and help. I'm giving my opinions and I'm involved in those spaces right now. So, but I'm always thinking about access and opportunities, and the gap will widen if we do not mitigate these and provide the resources to the parents.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, exactly like the plan for kids to get back on track, I think it's very, very important. So Dr. King, thank you so much for this space, for this interview. We were honored to have you as part of our guest speakers for the UNESCO Center for Peace Summer program, and we hope that our kids reach out to you for them to continue the amazing work that you're doing in STEM and in education in general. And we are honored and pleased to have you here.
Well, thank you so much, Guy. I'm just honored to honestly be a part of you all, the future of our future. I mean, globally, and so to have these opportunities, and then Guy, by all means, share my email address. I really would like to help the students, and I know I couldn't give a lot of answers, but whichever way I can, I'm available. So Guy, you know how to get in touch with me.
Definitely.
So looking
Thank
forward
you.
to partner with you in the future, and Raphael and Arielle, amazing. Keep up the
Thank
great
you.
work.
Arlie is 17 years old. 17
Wow.
years old, and she's been a youth ambassador. She's been working. This is the third time she's playing a leadership role. So there's hope.
You're doing some amazing work. Y'all are
Thank you.
doing some amazing work. You're doing
Thank you.
amazing work.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. You have a wonderful day.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.